Hello, this video provides a walkthrough of the main structures found within the IBM Knowledge Accelerators. To get to the Knowledge Accelerators, from the main menu you go to Organize, then select Data and AI Governance, and from there you select Categories. This will bring you to the overall main category for the Knowledge Accelerators. When you click on the Knowledge Accelerator category, you then get presented with the four main category areas of the Knowledge Accelerators. This overall high-level category structure is the same irrespective of which particular Knowledge Accelerator you are looking at. So let's look at the Business Core vocabulary. This is the centerpiece of each of the Knowledge Accelerators and contains thousands of business terms grouped into these subcategories, which are designed to help a data steward with the management of this overall business vocabulary for their organization. The Business Core vocabulary category itself typically has a set of business terms associated directly with it, which we can see down here. These tend to be highly reused terms that are shared by two or more of the subcategories. So these are placed at this higher level category. So if we look at one of the core sub-vocabularies, say we want to look at something like diagnosis, we can see that this particular category has 55 terms associated with it. And you will notice that in this Business Core vocabulary, most of the terms associated with a particular subcategory are owned by that particular category. In some cases, you will see this link icon, which indicates that the term is only referenced by the category and not directly owned by it. In this case, confidential indicator is a shared term with other categories so that it is owned by the higher level Business Core vocabulary. Looking at the terms themselves, specifically let's look at the term diagnosis. We can see that, like all terms of the Business Core vocabulary, diagnosis has a detailed description to provide users with more information about that term. You will also see that, as expected for a term like diagnosis, that it is referenced by many of the parts of the Knowledge Accelerator, as indicated by this list of secondary categories. This indicates that diagnosis gets used in a range of business scopes, which we will cover later in more detail. And looking at the term structure, we can see that it is a concept term. This classification is used to indicate that diagnosis is a key business item that we are interested in tracking or managing. You will also see that we have replicated this classification as a tag to assist with filtering on global search. Typically, a concept term has associated with it a set of property terms. In this case, we see that diagnosis comes with 31 different property terms. Think of these property terms as attributes or characteristics which further describe the concept of diagnosis. So, for example, diagnosis has an accepted date and it has an accepted reason. In addition to the associated properties, we can also see that diagnosis is also related to 459 other terms across various parts of the Knowledge Accelerator, and we'll get to these related terms later in this video. Oftentimes, certain concept terms are related to each other via the is-type of relationship. This is used to indicate when a concept term can be further broken down into subtypes. For instance, we see that diagnosis has a type of relationship to the term maternal diagnosis. And looking at that maternal diagnosis term, we can see how this is type of relationship is graphically represented in What's the Knowledge Catalog. It is important to note that in the IBM Knowledge Accelerators, this is type of has types relationship is only used between various types of concept terms. So looking at one of the property terms associated with diagnosis, say we're interested in seeing more details about the term accepted date. Once again, we can see that this term has a description, and in this case we can see that it is classified as a property term. It is a property of diagnosis and has no other relationship, so this term only exists to provide further information pertaining to diagnosis. Because this is a property term, we can see some additional details around this term, such as the fact that this term has a cardinality associated with it and it has a data type assigned. Another important type of term in the Knowledge Accelerators are relationship terms. So going back to the diagnosis term, if we look at the term called diagnosis plan member, we can see that this term is very similar in makeup to a property term. It has a cardinality, but in this case it also has a data type of relationship, and it also has an additional classification of relationship. And what this means is that diagnosis plan member is effectively describing a relationship between the concept terms of diagnosis and plan member. The second category area of the Knowledge Accelerators are the business performance indicators. These are groupings of KPIs or reporting requirements. So in this case, the Knowledge Accelerator for Healthcare has a range of categories covering key business performance areas such as clinical analytics, maternity care, and so on. So let's look at the sort of performance indicators in the area of campaign. Like all performance indicator subcategories, this consists of terms representing overall areas of specific analysis, as well as containing a range of terms relating to amounts of numeric information used in these specific analysis. Looking at the areas of campaign profitability analysis, this is represented by a term of the same name. We can see that this term has a classification of performance analysis, and we can see that it has connection to two different sets of terms. First of all, there are the connections to the numeric or amount terms as represented by the is part of relationship. Think of these as being broadly equivalent to a set of facts. And it also has a connection to a range of typically concept or property terms in the business core vocabulary, and consider these as representing the dimensions by which the facts are analysed. Also, let's have a look at one of these measure terms. Let's click on premium income amount. So we can see that this has a classification of a measure. However, what is particularly interesting with this type of term is that we can often see that they have a range of specific relationships. These measure terms can be used by other measure terms in order to build up an extensive set of calculations. So we can see that in this case, premium income amount is used as input to the calculation of revenue cost ratio and revenue ratio for new members, and so on. Similarly, we can see how measures are derived from non-measure terms. In this case, premium income amount is derived from a range of different terms. Where applicable, these measures are sometimes also have a formula assigned. The third main category area of the Knowledge Accelerators are the business scopes. The business scopes are a collection of views or of terms from across the Knowledge Accelerator that can be combined to represent a particular business topic or business function. All of the Knowledge Accelerators come with an extensive set of such predefined business scopes. If we look at one of these scopes, say the area of immunization, this business scope shows all 37 terms that are deemed to be relevant to support that particular topic. Of specific interest here is that unlike the categories in the business core vocabulary, these categories will not directly own any business terms, but merely reference terms owned by other areas of the Knowledge Accelerator. So, and you can see from the link icon here, all of these are reference terms, which effectively provide a view across the business core vocabulary saying what terms are relevant to this particular topic. The fourth category area of the Knowledge Accelerators are the industry alignment vocabularies. This is where various external standards and regulations relevant to this industry are represented. So in this case, we can see that the Knowledge Accelerators for Healthcare has references to external healthcare standards such as FHIR, and also includes references to more general regulations such as GDPR and CCPA. If we look at a regulation like the California Consumer Privacy Act, we can see that each regulation not only has detailed descriptions sourced from the document, but also contains any URLs to the specific version of that regulation that we are supporting. Like any document-based regulation supported by the Knowledge Accelerators, the equivalent alignment vocabulary has an extensive build-out of all of the key sections and areas of the actual document being referenced. As we tab down through this often extensive hierarchy of document structures represented as categories, wherever appropriate, the relevant business terms that have been extracted from that part of the document are assigned to that particular category. All of the individual terms in the industry alignment vocabularies have the classification of alignment term, and often have additional classifications representing different types of regulations. For example, in this case, this is a document term indicating that it has been derived from the document. So this doesn't have a description as none was supplied by the regulator. Other alignment terms will be known as defined terms, where that term has been specifically defined by the regulator and would typically have a description associated with it. In addition, these terms will typically have a mapping back to the business core vocabulary, as indicated by a is related to relationship, as well as being indicated by a custom attribute called assigned to term. This means that industry alignment vocabularies have an extensive and rich set of mappings back to the business core vocabulary. So in this example, the CCPA term Business and Professions Code is mapped back to the business core vocabulary term of industry classification, which, if we click on it, we can see that the details of this term are available now to us as well. You will notice that during this video I've made a lot of references to various classifications associated with particular terms. In fact, these are part of an extensive set of classifications that are used across all business terms and all categories within the IBM Knowledge Accelerators. By going to the Classifications tab underneath the Data and AI Governance, we can see the full range of classifications that are supplied with the IBM Knowledge Accelerators. As with the terms and categories, these classifications also come with a description. To find out the list of terms associated with a particular classification, you can get a list of such terms by going to the related content for that particular classification. Given the large number of terms that are likely associated with each of these classifications, we've also replicated all of these classifications as tags. This means that it is possible to also filter on these classifications when you are using the global search facility. We have taken you through the main structural areas of the IBM Knowledge Accelerators. You can get more information about these structures from our Knowledge Center documentation online. Thank you for taking the time to view this video.